Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Ollie out. I have been Ollie out for an extremely long time. Now, yesterday we did a video talking about how we can get the Glazers out of our club. And just because I'm hashtagging Ollie out, it doesn't mean I think they're the solution. They're obviously not. But I like to have a balanced argument. And I've got a new perspective for you today on Big Mouth about the Manchester United situation. Today I can exclusively bring you that it was obviously Ollie that wanted Sancho. Woodward didn't want Sancho, and this is why. Woodward thought it would be better for Ollie to bring in 6 players in different positions, including a centre-back. Now, what he tried to explain to Ollie was, if I pay 108 to 120 million, right, then because the truth is Dortmund didn't want instalments, they wanted the money. Because we're in COVID right now, because we're in a situation, clubs want straight money straight away. They're not in the same position as they were. Even the larger clubs, and you know, Dortmund's not a really large club. It's a really well-run club, but it isn't a large club. So they wanted 108 to 120 full on. Now, if we bought Sancho, Woodward made it clear to Ollie that there would be no way of buying any other players. Now, with gritted teeth, I have to say that Woodward is right here. So the choice that Woodward gave Ollie was Sancho or around 6 players, right? So we can pepper the squad, make it stronger, and 3 of those players would slip into the first team as well. Ollie rejected that. Ollie wanted Sancho, but from the moment we brought Van der Beek for 40 million, it was obvious that Sancho wasn't coming. Because once you spend 40 million, you're not then going to spend another 120 million. This was obvious. It was obvious to me. It was obvious to a lot of people. But people kept on insisting that Sancho was going to come, but he was never going to come. Whether you heard that Man United were going to make a bid or not, that wasn't going to happen. Now, as we've all seen since the beginning of the season, Ollie refuses to start Van der Beek. He started him in a couple of League Cup games or whatever, right? Have we had 1 League Cup game? 2? Anyone? Right, he hasn't started him in the Premier League. That's for sure. Now, I don't know about you, but Van der Beek's reputation around Europe is very, very high. Now, Edwin van der Sar helped us get the edge there with this player. And I think we're all extremely grateful, and the club are extremely grateful to Edwin for that. Because this player was seen as, for me, he was seen as a starter, but people started saying, oh, he's going to be on the bench. Hang on a minute, Ollie. You spent £40 million on a player, and then you benched him for Premier League games. When it's obvious we need him on the pitch, we need his creativity. Now, I understand that Pogba is a very famous, high-profile player, but he's been inconsistent from day one. Now, I don't blame Pogba totally for that. He's been played out of position. 1 minute he's further forward, then he's in a defensive midfield role. Some people say his long balls are better from where Ollie plays him. But there's more to his game than peppering a few long balls in. For crying out loud, is that all we see him for? At Juventus, he was further forward and he was a consistent world-class player. That's why he cost so much money to bring to Manchester United. We have not used him properly. Whether it's Jose or Ollie, they simply have put him out of position, in negative positions, and that's why the lad has suffered. So I don't blame, Pogba. I mean, Pogba's got an interesting attitude. When we were being thrashed 6-1 to Spurs, he started smiling at the end of the game. I don't think he can help himself. I don't think it means he doesn't care, but it's something you shouldn't really be doing, and this is the kind of thing that turns fans against you, of course. So we got Van der Beek in for 40 million. I don't believe that Van der Beek is an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer signing. Excuse me. I think he's an Ed Woodward signing. I think this is something Ed went to Edwin and said, let's do this. That's why he's not playing. He doesn't want him there. Ollie has thrown his toys out the pram, right? Everyone says that Manchester United didn't have a transfer plan this summer, but ultimately when you look at it, I think there was a plan. There was Woodward's plan and there was Solskjaer's plan. And then we have to look closer at this, because I can also exclusively tell you that they wanted to clear out some players, the club. But Ollie didn't want to get rid of Lingard. He didn't want to get rid of Phil Jones or his other friends at the club. And the problem is with Ollie, he's turned Manchester United into a little bit of a country club. Phil Jones, Lingard, people like this that should have been cleared out, haven't been cleared out. Not because Woodward doesn't want to clear them out, not because they're on big wages, because the wages at mainstream clubs are pretty high anyway. There's no point just singling out Manchester United for this. The point is that a fit Phil Jones, there's a lot of clubs who would buy that player, because a fit Phil Jones is a really good defender. And the only reason he's had problems at United is because he's injury prone. So I believe we could definitely get rid of him for maybe 10 to 20 million. Maybe that's rather ambitious, but I think that's maybe 25, definitely around that figure. He's a good defender. And so you could get rid of him, right? Smaller clubs would buy him. But Ollie, I can tell you this, Ollie didn't want to get rid of Lingard. He didn't want to get rid of Phil Jones. And so all of a sudden now, we're seeing something quite shocking where we're all blaming Woodward. Because the Glazers are not involved in the everyday running of the club. They're in America. They come to the odd game. They're not running this club. Yeah, they decide to pull certain pieces of money out. After all, it is their money. But at the end of the day, the actual decision-making of the running of the club is down to Ed Woodward. And, of course, team affairs are down to the manager, which right now is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But when you look that Ollie just wanted to buy Sancho and not Warren, listen, you know, it's interesting to me that the fans identified last year, before the Greece situation, that Harry Maguire, or Dirty Harry as I've nicknamed him, let's call him Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry was not playing well last year. He's a flop. He hasn't been playing well. Now I want to go over to Lindelof and Bailey, because a lot of people have said a lot of unkind things about them. Bailey has just come back from an injury. You can't expect him to be this brilliant, world-beating centre-back. We need to give him time. And the truth of the matter is, Lindelof and Bailey, under Jose Mourinho, when they were coached well, were very, very good defenders. Not only were they good defenders, they were a great unit. Yes, they weren't perfect, but they were coached better then, and they were doing a good job, right? And they became a good unit. And I believe, with the chance, these two could become a great unit. Now, I know Lindelof's made some mistakes, but that takes coaching, confidence in players. I think what I see from people talking about Lindelof and Bailey, they don't understand. You can't just throw defenders, centre-backs there and don't coach them and, don't give them confidence and don't help them become a unit. All the best centre-back partnerships have become a unit through great coaching and through a relationship between the two players. People like Bruce and Pallister, Stam and Jonsson. That didn't happen automatically. That was from coaching. That was from a relationship and a dynamic between the two players. But Ollie just wants to chuck defenders on there. There's no coaching. And that's the problem. So you can blame Woodward for the full-time appointment of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, an inexperienced manager who relegated Cardiff and did okay at Fox Mulder, right? It's not the same thing, right? It's like, sometimes I kind of play some music. I play one of the United songs, FA Cup songs, and I imagine I'm Man United manager, and I imagine I'm standing there and cheering and chewing gum, and that I've won everything. I start saying, yeah, Mickey Minas, the greatest manager of all time, and I've replaced whatever manager they sacked at the time. But that's not real. I could never become a football manager. I've never played the game. I've only really been interested in football since Man United drew 0-0 with West Ham and we lost the league to Blackburn. That's what made me fall in love with the club, right? A young Gary Neville crying, then, seeing those players give everything and being drained. I remember the FA Cup final the following week. This was only my second game as a United fan. And Barry Davies goes, and Manchester United end up with nothing. And it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And when you see Eric, as he's saying that, Eric Cantona's he stood up from the podium. And you could see the anger and frustration in Eric's face We don't have that mentality at the club. We lost the winning mentality from the moment Sir Alex Ferguson left this club. There's no other Sir Alex Ferguson, although we said there'd never be another Sir Matt Busby, and we had Sir Alex Ferguson. So there's always a great manager out there if you're looking to see who's doing these jobs. Now, Pochettino has wanted this job for a very long time. It's the reason he hasn't taken another job. So that's quite loyal of him, seeing the mess that Manchester United is in and how badly it's run. I do believe if Pochettino comes in, he would insist in a director of football and his own director of football. I think that's very important now, and Woodward has to at least concede that. But in terms of what's happened with this transfer window, putting it all on Woodward and the Glazers is an imagination. So let's create a scenario here. Because we're not there, we don't know. Let's create a scenario, right? And this is what I've heard. That Ollie came to Woodward and said, I want Jadon Sancho. Woodward says, look, if you buy Sancho, you can't populate the places in the team and the squad that you desperately need, Ollie. I'm not an expert on football like everyone says, but I think you need a centre-back. And by the way, I think you made a mistake with Dirty Harry. Now, let's be honest about this. Dirty Harry is an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer acquisition, and he's failed at the moment. You've got Daniel James, who rumours were he wanted to swap or get rid of. A year after he signed him. So what does that say about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's judgment as a manager? That's another thing as well. So we got this manager who potentially wanted to sacrifice team building for one player. And let me ask you something else. What do you know about Jadon Sancho? Because if you know a bit about him, is he really worth 108 to 120 million euros? Tell me, do you genuinely believe this guy is just a 21st century Trevor Sinclair? He runs fast. He can pop a ball in. He can score a few goals. Great. But shouldn't we be focusing at the problem at hand first? It was obvious that Sancho at that price was overpriced and wasn't viable, right? Now, I don't know who was leaking to the press about us still being interested in him. Maybe it wasn't the club who were doing that. Maybe it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to put pressure on the club. Maybe it was that. Because Jan Åge Fjuthoff, an ex-Norwegian player, has been very, very visible on Twitter ever since Ole has become manager. And I find that interesting because I don't remember him tweeting very much before that. And he, obviously he's been, banging the drums about Ole as well. But I think, and a lot of stuff about Sancho was coming out from him as well. Lots of people who claimed they knew that Manchester United would definitely make the bid in the amount that Dortmund wanted. Dortmund was saying, but, weeks ago Dortmund was saying, it's not happening. They're not going to buy him. They knew that because they knew Manchester United were not willing to pay 108 to 120 million. Now, I don't care about Borussia Dortmund, but I think that there's an issue here if they think some idiot's going to come in and buy him for that amount of money. Because they're starting to get a bit of a reputation of a Del Boy or of an Arthur Daly. Are these players worth it? Is Jude Bellingham worth it? Are these players that they're picking up actually worth it? It'll be interesting as time goes on. Now, lots of people were saying it was vital that we bought Sancho because he was a statement signing. I don't like statement signings. It's like dating the most beautiful woman in a club just because everyone's going to say, oh my God, how did you bag her, mate? Do you understand? So that's the statement signings are no good for team building. Now, Ed said a year or so ago, he said, we're not going to be reactive. We are not just going to sign older players. We want to build for the future. Now, everyone's sitting Ed down because obviously he signed a 33-year-old player from PSG, giving him the number 7 shirt. But also in that window, in Ed's defence, we signed a couple of 18-year-olds as well. So he is actually doing what he said he was going to do. But here's the issue with the 3 we brought in. Van der Beek, top class, right? No question about that. I forgot the left-back's name. He is a top-class player. Even at 28, we need some experience at the club and in the first team. And I forgot the striker's name as well. Not very good with names. Bloody hell, I'm going to die on this video. But the point being that these three acquisitions, for me, are good acquisitions. Now, the 33-year-old striker, he hasn't played for a while. It is a gamble. I think he's a free transfer. He's on a lot of money, of course, but all footballers are on a lot of money now. I think it's a gamble worth taking. Now, a lot of people think he's come in just as a sub, but you do not bring a player in and give him the iconic number 7 if he's not a first teamer. This guy is a first teamer. They're going to try him out. Again, I don't believe this is an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer signing, but these 3 players that have come in are somebody's signings. Who chose them? Also, something's been put out to the press that Manchester United are reviewing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's position at the club. Now, that's very interesting because a review doesn't mean he's going to be sacked. What it actually means is that they want us to know that they understand there are issues and that they're looking at those issues. Now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is obviously a really nice guy. He was a great player for us. But as I said yesterday, he should never have been our full-time manager. And what's really frustrating at the moment, a lot of people who love this club, who talk about this club, don't seem to see it. He is part of the problem. It doesn't matter if you like Woodward or the Glazers or not. He is a problem. He came in, he seduced us with some good football. Near the end of his temporary run, we got back. The injection ran out from that shot of new manager syndrome. They then gave him a full-time contract where they were wrong to do so. I think Poch should have been appointed from then. And look what's happened. We're in trouble. I believe one of the most important things is to change our manager. We need to change our manager. But there has to be some longevity now. We have to get this one right. We said that about the last appointment, and we got it wrong. And to me, it was obvious we got it wrong from day one. But everyone wanted to kind of paint over the cracks and pretend that this was a longevity kind of appointment, that he would bring in young players and he would carry on playing good football. The young players have come in, but Ole has shown that he's a very average amateur manager and he shouldn't be managing Manchester United. Now, personally, the ideal scenario for me is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, in fact, is removed before the end of the international break. And Poch comes in and we can turn this around because despite what people say, I believe we've got a very strong first 11. And there's some players in the squad that are quite good as well. But we've seen so many managers in the history of football do something amazing with so very little. 95-96, we lost. The season before, we lost the league to Blackburn. You know, we could have gone down. We brought in these raw kids in with some experience. Newcastle were killing it in the league in the first half of the season. But somehow we turned it around because we had a manager who could stitch something together while it was developing. We saw Harry Bassett and Joe Kinnear basically pick up a bunch of tramps off the street and make great sides with them with Wimbledon. That is what football's all about. That's what's got lost here. That a good coach can get results one way or another. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer isn't that coach. So why everyone's screaming about, we want players, we need players, we need players? A good coach shouldn't be using the excuse that I need more players. When you've got Martial, when you've got Rashford, when you've got Pogba, when you just brought in Van der Beek and you slam him on the bench. We have got top quality players in the first team. And if they're coached properly, we can have a great run. Maybe not the title, but great run. We can actually turn this season around if we remove Ole. But if we insist on this manager, it's going to go from bad to worse. I can see it already. I think we may scrap some wins away from home. But already I can see with his style of play, we've got no hope of winning any games at Old Trafford and being turned over at Old Trafford. The warning signs are already there. If we stick with this manager, we will ultimately get relegated, whether it's this season or the next season. We have an opportunity to right another wrong. We need to bring a manager who will stay for the foreseeable. Now, Mauricio Pochettino has rejected other offers. He's hanging on. hoping he can get the United job. And I say, let's give it to him. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with even more videos. See you again soon.